Good foggy Wednesday morning, September 24th. Yeah, and it was worse earlier because it's, what is it, like 9:15 right now? Yeah. Our normal high temperature for this time of year is like 69 to 70. And they show for like the next 10 days we're in the, mid 70s, some upper 70s. If we get enough sun, we could actually hit 80 this weekend. But yeah, and it's humid. So this is what you get after the rain that we got. Like late Monday night into Tuesday. I got just shy of a half an inch, 0.45. Yeah, my sister lives like, 10, 11 miles that way, northwest a little. They had over an inch. But at this point in time, I don't, other than we need rain because we've been so, below average this summer by whatever it is now, I don't know, somewhere between 3 to 5 inches. So yes, we need rain to replenish, but as far as helping the crop, no, we're to the, like I said, it's the 24th of September. We're to the point helping the crop we're beyond that, let's put it that way. Might make it so that the ground isn't like, driving equipment across rough concrete, so to speak, in the fields if it softens them just a little. But so I got that door and one of the front doors in the shed over there open. They're supposed to be bringing me a pallet of DEF today. I'm going to put it over there. DEF, for you non-farmers, which I'm sure you've probably heard of anyhow. DEF, the diesel exhaust fluid. Yes, I use the 2.5 gallon jugs. I don't get the big totes or anything because that's my only two machines here that take DEF, the combine and the 8295R. So, and it's a little more of a pain in the ass dumping jugs, but I'm not worried about any kind of contamination because that jug is closed until I open it, take the seal off, and start pouring it. Where in some sort of big container, shit can happen in plain English, and when that stuff gets contaminated, not good, because it's not good. It's not good to start with, in my opinion. The old government juice, as most farmers call it. But I will say this, though. I've had, knock on wood, coming over here to knock on some wood, I've had way less problems, pretty much no problems, with any machine I've had now or in the past that have taken DEF compared to ones like this or the 8235R, which sits down there in the driveway, that just have the exhaust regen filter in it. Yeah. If you go back a few years, you'll see the video on the 8235 that spring. Yeah. Like I said, that's just me. I know there's some people that hate DEF, have nothing great to say about it, which is fine. I'm not a fan of it, but I've had less problems with that than I have with the other stuff. I'm just stating my opinion and my experiences. But I got a question, though, considering all this stuff, this, regen shit, the DEF and all that. How come our military doesn't use that stuff? The government wants to push that stuff on agriculture and construction and, diesel trucks and stuff like that. I wonder why they don't want a tank to have to regen in the middle of a war or something, or a Humvee or something like that. Stop and think about it. Yeah, you do this, but we don't have to, type of thing. Yeah, maybe because they know, really, it sucks. And it's just all part of the whole, BS going on with climate change. It's starting to get a little brighter, so rather than squint, I put my sunglasses on. So I'm going to sit here on the back of the gator for a minute. Some of you were calling this something. a segment, something back of the gator. I can't remember, but it was funny. But anyways, just quickly, how many of you saw Trump at the UN yesterday? I know the haters are going to come on here. Oh, he is such a disrespectful, horrible president to represent us like that. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was absolutely awesome that the dude is not afraid to speak the truth and ditch the politically correct BS. Because stop and think about the one thing he pointed out. I've been saying this because it just makes no sense to me either. I said this to Barb. Some of these European countries are giving Ukraine money and weapons and shit like that to, help them with the war against Russia. And then they turn around and buy their gas and oil from Russia. So what do you think the profits from that are helping Russia do? Oh, I don't know, fund their war against Ukraine? Yeah, there's a way to help stop the war, you morons. Which, like Trump said, stupidest thing I've ever seen. I mean, but he's a horrible person for, pointing that out and saying it the way that he said it. Holy shit. Wake up. Wake up. All right, so obviously there's not going to be a whole lot of farming in this video. It's probably going to be none, actually, other than maybe I'll show you when the depth shows up. The fog is starting to get a little clearer. It's about 9:45, but one of the things I wanted to address in this video, I'm going to wipe my mouth like I'm not supposed to. I've had we'll call it discussion with a few different farmers in the past couple videos. I won't call it an argument, I'll call it a discussion. And about crop prices, okay? Because some of you have probably heard, the USDA is talking about, giving more government welfare to the farmers, as the haters like to say, because, I get one or two that love to come in and, why don't you admit that the government payments to farmers, that's socialism. You guys are against socialism. I've said 1,000,000 times, I'll say it again. I just soon government got out of agriculture completely and let the chips fall where they may, because I think our prices would be better, but you wouldn't like it because your loaf of bread would cost twice as much as what it does now, because that's been the whole purpose of this government bullshit with agriculture. Okay, the thing called the Farm Bill, as I've explained, but some like to argue that I'm wrong, but look it up. 85% of the Farm Bill has nothing to do with farmers. It's, the WIC program, EBT, food stamps, free government lunch programs. Used to be you had to qualify for, a free lunch at a school. Now they hand out free lunch and free breakfast. Doesn't matter if your parents make $250,000 a year. It's still free. Does it make sense? No, but you want to bitch at us for, getting some kind of subsidy like we got earlier this year that was passed last year during the Biden administration, and he signed into law, remember? So, but hey, whatever. And that was the first time I've seen anything since, I think it was 2018 or 19, something like that, when Trump was negotiating with China and then got the phase 1 deal. And then what happened? Oh, yeah, Trump lost and Biden won, and our prices actually went up. And then Biden didn't hold China's feet to the fire, and China stopped buying, and our prices went back down. But speaking of prices, so yesterday, and this was kind of my, again, I'm not going to say argument, discussion with somebody in a previous video. I think it was the last video. It might have been 2 videos ago. I don't remember. But I had 10,000 bushels of corn, not necessarily pre-sold, but I did a basis contract for fall because I always need to sell some ahead to have enough room. The basis contract was for -25. Okay, for you non-farmers, and that's picked up here at the farm. That means whatever the Board of Trade price was, let's say I'm going to use easy numbers, it was $4.25, I would get $4, okay? So yesterday, when it hit, I think it was 426, which I just looked. It's still opened up at that and is sitting there steady right now. Beans are up like 4 cents today. I priced 5,000, half of that, 10,000 bushel. So I got 401 a bushel. Now that's picked up here at the farm. Trucking is all figured in. That's what I get, 401, $4.01 a bushel. Now, if you go back to last year's fall videos, you'll see where I told you, and shy of going and digging up contracts to show you, because some of you just don't want to believe me. I think I got $355 for one contract. I think I had 15,000 sold last year. I didn't sell as much this year because we didn't get 35 acres planted, which would have been corn. I think I had one that was $355 a bushel picked up, one that was like $365 a bushel picked up, and the other one was like $380 a bushel picked up. Not until after January, so January 1st of 2025 this year, did the prices start inching up. And then we started getting, get out of here, bug. And we started getting like $4.10 a bushel for some, $4.20 a bushel, $4.30 a bushel. These were all picked up prices. And then the last corn I sold, I got like, I don't know what it was. It was the basis turned positive. So it was like 460 or 70 cents a bushel. So it might even been 480. I don't remember. And the reason why the basis turned positive was because New York we're going to have a shortage of corn because of the wet spring we had, the record amount of prevent plant we had, which means it didn't get planted, hence prevent plant. So the basis has turned positive. So right now, I wish I hadn't done the minus 25, but that was a good basis because normally we are minus 30, minus 40. Beans are normally minus 60 to minus 80, minus 90. We're never positive here. All right, the beans that I contracted that I think I've talked about in a previous video where I'm going to get $9.73 a bushel. Is that great? No, but I got $9.40 a bushel last year at this time. Well, in a few weeks here when we're harvesting in October because the basis was minus 75. So right now, when I just looked on my phone, beans were up like 3 or 4 cents to 10.15. If I did it today, I'd get the same as I got last year, $9.40 a bushel. But I did it, I don't know what it was, 2-3 weeks ago when it was higher. That's the way the market works. It fluctuates up and down. Now I have 10,000 bushels of corn on a basis, get out of here, bug, on a basis contract for January, February, March, off the March contract. I priced 5,000 of that yesterday, half of it. It was a basis contract for plus 75 cents, which is something we don't ever see here. But we're gonna this year because of the shortage of corn. And I think I priced it at $5.17 a bushel, picked up here at the farm. So you figure that out, what it was, minus 75, 442 on the board, something like that. I didn't price the other one yet because I'm hoping maybe it crawls up. If it goes up another 5-10 cents, I may price both the fall one and the January one. My point is, I realize I've had people come in here and I don't sell anything ahead of time because, I'm not going to sell something that I don't have yet. Well, if you live in an area where 8 out of the last 10 years you've lost your crop completely, okay, I get it, not forward contracting anything. I'd move because I think that's bullshit that you supposedly have lost your crop 8 out of the last 10 years. Do we have some bad years? Yeah. We've never had a complete loss here. Do some people, some places? Maybe, I don't know. But you don't contract your entire crop. I contract maybe a quarter or a third at the most. That way, if for some reason all of a sudden I have 50% of what I normally would have, I still have enough to cover those contracts. In the fall, and any farmer that wants to come on here in the comments and disagree with me on this, I call bullshit. You're lying to the non-farmers. Generally in the fall, that's your lowest prices. The reason why it's your lowest prices, I'll get up off the gator here for a minute. The reason why it's your lowest prices, because there's a lot of farmers out there who don't have those things, storage facilities, grain bins. So they have to sell right out of the field in the fall to whatever, ethanol plant, feed mills, you know, a Cargill, whatever. I mean, they just have to sell out of the field. Well, those places want to buy it as cheap as possible. Therefore, the price always seems to get driven down in the October, November, December range to be the lowest prices that we're going to see. Not always. That's not always the case, but probably 8 out of 10 years it's the case. So if you don't use the market by trying to contract when you see profitable prices, I wish I had done those fall contracts back earlier this year when corn was $4.75, because I would have got $4.50. Because I think it got up to around $4.75, $4.77, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I looked at what was happening here. I looked at what was happening pretty much on the whole eastern corn belt and figured there's no way we're going to have a record crop that the USDA says we're going to have. But of course, the USDA continues to say we're going to have. So my point is, if you don't use the market to try and make money and you just get what you get because you refuse to do that, and especially if you have to sell everything straight off the combine in the fall, I mean, I don't know what to say. There's a lot of farmers out there, you know, that are, oh, the prices suck, it's Trump and his tariffs and all this stuff. Are our prices great? No. But I already know I'm making 40, 50 cents a bushel more than what I did last year at this time at harvest because I used the market. I know I'm going to make considerably more after January, but that's us here because of the basis. Now, for you non-farmers, if you're asking, why is your basis so good? All right, New York is always in the top 5 dairy producing states in the country. So we've bounced between 4th and 5th with Idaho. I think Idaho has pretty much taken 4th place away from us here lately. But our number of acres, which I don't know the exact number and I'm not going to look it up, but our number of acres of corn planted in this state, half or more, probably more than that, goes towards silage. Okay, I'm going to explain it for the non-farmers, so just relax, farmers. Okay, the corn, when that machine, the combine, goes through, all it's doing is stripping the ear off and tearing the stalk down through the head, grinding it up so it's, you know, the pieces are laying on the ground to decay, which is good because that helps the soil. A chopper goes in, cuts that plant off at 6-8 inches off the ground, whatever, and runs the entire plant through the machine and grinds it up into what they call silage, which, like for me when I was a dairy farmer, happened to go in that white cement silo right there. And then it ferments and it's called, you know, insilage. So a lot of the big farms obviously put it in bunks. Some of them put it in the big, you know, long white bags and whatnot, but you get my drift. So New York knows it's going to have a shortage of grain corn. Okay, the one person also said to me that something about, you know, I don't have your advantage of getting rid of stuff. Well, our ethanol plant is like 90 miles away from me. There's nothing within like 30 miles of me where my corn goes. And I don't truck it. We just have the 2 6-wheelers that we go from farm or from field to farm here with. So that's why I do everything picked up on a contract. FOB, they call it. So, I mean, a lot of my corn you've seen over the last 2-3 years goes to a feed mill down near the New York-Pennsylvania border. It's just, I don't know. I'm not trying to start an argument with my fellow farmers, but are our prices great? No, they're not. We should be able to get over $5 all the time with what our input costs are. But there's another thing. I said this in my comment back to this person. You know, my anhydrous tanks right there. I explained all this back in the spring. Everything was around the same price as it was last year, which still isn't great, don't get me wrong. Fuel was cheaper. Seed was like 3 or 4% higher, but my anhydrous was a little bit cheaper. My dry fertilizer was like 30, 40 bucks a ton cheaper than what it was for 24. I don't know. I mean, we can't keep, do our prices shitty? Yes. Can you make a profit? Not a very big one, but can you make a profit? Well, if you want to use the market, you probably can. But if you don't want to use the market, and I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to start an argument, but this is why the government, we're 1.8% of the population. We're not even 2% anymore. This is why the government likes to throw us a bone now and then to, make sure we don't go out of business, because we need to keep producing the cheap food and whatnot, because like I've said in a previous video, and you can look this up, we supposedly spend 10 to 11% of our expendable money, I guess they call it, on food in this country, where there's other countries that spend 20, 30, 40, 50. People complain about gas prices. Well, $3 a gallon. I get it, we're complaining because, hey, when Trump was in office the first time, it dropped below 2. When he left, it was like 2.20. But is $3 a gallon really horrible when you look at what Canada's paying per liter in some of these other countries? I mean, yeah, you get your libtard states like California where it's always $1 or more a gallon, more than the national average and whatnot. But take that with a grain of salt. It's California. Usually the whole West Coast. I mean, I live in New York and it's not even that bad. I think right now gas is around $3.15. It got down into the 290s, but then it went back up a little. But you get my point with all this. Like I said, I'm not trying to start an argument with anybody, but am I happy with the prices the way they are? No. Would I like that stuff to go back down to $350 a ton like it was maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago? Absolutely. Would I like my dry fertilizer to be $300 a ton instead of $590 like it was this year, $640 like it was in 2024? Yeah, I'd love it to be $300, but you got to play the market to try and make money. All right, so I went and picked a shitty looking ear corn. That's not a great ear corn. That was on the very first row here. I don't know how well you can see, but you can see some that are really brown. The husks are really brown, where the plant basically prematurely died. Okay, the only reason why I did it is because I wanted to show you what black layer is. No, most of the corn is not at black layer, and I'm glad. See that when you tear the little tip of the kernel off? That means it's reached maturity. But I'm going to try and set you here like I did the other day. The only problem with that, with this one dying early, hear that? That's real squishy, the cob. I mean, look at the kernels. They're just peel right off. There's no weight to these whatsoever. So I'm glad that the corn that I showed you the last time didn't do this, because it wasn't at full maturity yet. But the ones that prematurely died, yeah, they've reached that full maturity, but they're not going to weigh a whole lot. You can see that. But yeah, so maybe next video, maybe this coming weekend, we'll go and check some more corn and see if it's gotten to black layer, the stuff that didn't prematurely die, like this one stalk that I picked right there happened to. And I see other ones along the road there, because that test weight's going to suck in that corn. And yeah, you don't want that. All right, I'm just going to give you one more thing now, because it's not like it's, real thrilling for you to watch me take the forks and pick a pallet off of a truck and go set it down, because it's not real thrilling. Yes, the fog is finally starting to lift, and it's like 10:30 now, but All right, so anyways, you're one more thing. Again, I'm not trying to piss off my fellow farmers. You know, the haters are going to come in and say, well, you whined about the prices. God, these bugs are horrible this morning. Yes, I have. Because, again, I'm not saying prices are great, because they're not. I mean, you know, who doesn't bitch about not being able to make a decent living, which is, like I said, why, in my opinion, you got to play the market to try and, I don't know. There's been years where the person who just sits and waits and never contracts anything, they make out fine. But most of the time, that doesn't happen. But it is what it is. So if I pissed off any of my fellow farmers, well, oh well. I mean, I'm sorry, but I will continue to follow the market every day, continue to contract things on the bounces where it goes up and whatnot, because like I said, if I can sell something for a profit, isn't that the point? And unfortunately, as I've stated a million times on this channel, and I'll state it again, we're probably the only industry in the world that sells wholesale and buys retail. We're told what somebody's going to charge us for something, and we're told what we're going to get for what we produce. And we generally pay the freight both ways, you know, to us and leaving here. That's what part of the basis is the trucking is figured into that. So, and the reason why I don't think we're probably going to see much over a plus 75, maybe it'll go to a plus $1. But when it gets to the point that the places here in New York can railroad it in from the Midwest for this, you know, a certain price, that's where our basis is going to top out. They're not going to go above that because they can get it here from the Midwest for the same price. So that's your video. You like it, you like it. You don't, whatever. All right, you're going to get a quick second more thing. As you can see, the forks are off. The loader, or the bucket's back on. The shed's closed up. Yeah, they just brought my DEF. I got it from O'Hara Machinery, the one who I, you know, had the door issue with here. But obviously that all got resolved and whatnot. And they gave me the best deal on a pallet of DEF, so that's where I got it from. But the reason why I'm doing this second more thing is because Craig, the road parts guy that does the delivering, he handed me the bill, and that pallet of DEF would have been like $760 or something. I don't remember. I gave the bill to Barb because she needed to write a check, because remember how they were taking the 2 hours of labor off for the door deal and all of that's in the past. Well, apparently they also credited me for the other $357, around $360 worth of labor that we paid for that. So not only did the second guy come out and get it done and done right and done satisfactory, great, you know, that was it, and subtract 2 hours off, they subtracted the whole labor thing off, so I had a credit. So in order to clean up that whole credit thing, we wrote a check for the difference, so which means I got my DEF for really cheap. So I didn't ask for O'Hara's to do that. I more than appreciate the fact that O'Hara's did that. They apparently did that on their own. I told Craig, go back and thank whoever decided to do it, because nobody, you know, ever said to me they were going to take the whole labor off. So, and I know some of you'll say, oh, they just did it to, you know, so you would do this, go on your video and talk nice about them or whatever. Well, yeah, I am gonna, because they did something that they didn't have to do, and I didn't ask them to do. So that is them going above and beyond. And I've always, like I've said, had a good relationship with them. What went wrong with that whole door thing? It's still a little baffling, but it's over with. And I probably will continue doing business with them. Just like I just bought a pallet full of Def from them. But I just thought I needed to say that they did that for me, and they didn't have to. It's not like I was bitching you should take the entire bill off. But so kudos to them.